Okay, well, I've got a few bits and pieces in the way of yoga props, as I usually do. The mandatory mats, um, a belt, a yoga strap, a blanket. I'm sitting on a bolster and a block. And today's session, the theme is once again breathing, which is always the yoga theme, but a little bit more emphasis on it. And a particular thing, which in Sanskrit is called Vinyasa, it's a really popular expression, and it's also used synonymously with flow yoga. So emphasis on breathing that gets you flowing postures and like that. So having said all of that, let's begin. All right, we're taking a standing position onto the mat. And this is a good place for me to be able to show you this vinyasa breathing. And it's a particular way where the breath is encapsulating the movement, or it's like a beautiful picture frame around the movement. So when we do this vinyasa breathing, we start with an inhalation a little bit before the movement starts, like this. And I'm just raising my arms up. And then the inhalation finishes after the movement stops. And then the exhalation starts, the movement starts. And we just finish the movement and a little bit more exhalation. So really you're prolonging the breath. And we're just slowing this down. If you're not the kind of person that has slow movements, you're very quick in things that you do, it's a really good way to slow down your mind, I think. I'd be one of those movement people that likes quick movements. So we're inhaling and then starting the raising of the arms, finishing the movement, a little bit more inhalation, and exhale starts, arms come down, movement stops, a little bit more exhalation through the abdominal area. And I think you have the gist of it. And then just pausing with your arms loose by your side, have your feet a little bit apart, relax at the back of your knees, and just arrive in Tadasana at this time. Shoulders relaxed, belly relaxed, just normal breathing. All right, and then take a lying down position on your back, on your mat. Take time to get comfortable there, and what helps me is if I have my legs bent and my feet on the floor just behind my buttocks. It eases my back when I lie down, and then my arms out at a little distance from the side of the body. Drop the weight of your body, back of your head, shoulders, buttocks and feet, arms. And then extend out your legs, one leg and then the other. Bring your legs and your feet all the way together. And feel into the backs of your legs so that the legs feel really long from buttocks to heels. And then with your arms nearer to the side of your body, we're going to do the same thing that we just did in a standing position. On an inhalation, we'll start to raise the arms overhead. So start the inhalation, and then start the movement. An overhead stretch. Just go within your range of movement because we're just warming up the body. And the inhalation finishes after the movement finishes. Start your exhalation and then drawing the arms back to where you started. the movement finishes, a little bit more exhalation through the lower abdominal muscles. And then let's go a few cycles like that to get into the rhythm. And for me, it's very soothing to slow down movement and to be much more cognizant of my breath. Each time that you raise your arms overhead, keep the ribs at the bottom front rib cage relaxed so they don't lift up towards the ceiling, even at the apex of your movement. All right, and then let's go one more cycle. So inhaling, the arms move overhead. There's a reach of the arms, but the diaphragm doesn't lift. And then lowering back down, movement starts after the breath starts. And then leave your arms just by your side. Let all the energy go out of them. Just let them be supported. Beautiful. And then bend your legs and have your feet on the floor near to your buttocks. Let's do Apanasana pose, the movements I call ins and outs. Lift your feet off the floor, bring your knees towards your chest, rest your hands onto the front of your knees, and then just relax your elbows. So you're not doing anything with your arms or your legs just yet, just settling in there. Notice if you move the sitting bones towards the floor, that will recreate your natural lumbar arch. So that's a good adjustment for you to make for yourself. Now beginning, exhale, thighs come in towards your abdomen a little bit more. Did I say inhale? Exhale in and inhale out. Rather than pulling with your arms or the strength of your arm muscles, just let your arms be passive, and then the work is more in the legs and is felt through the abdomen. So if we do the framing of the movement, you start the exhalation, bring the knees towards you, finish the movement, finish the exhalation, and then start again with inhaling. In some ways, the way we're working is counterintuitive, or maybe not the way that we've been trained, but it's a good interruption that has the mind focus and anchor better, I think. All right, and then last time as the knees move away from you, just check that your elbows, your arm muscles are relaxed, and then pause there. Drop your arms out to the side, and then a little crossover, knees towards the right side, look towards the left. Back to center, small movement, knees left, look right. And continue in that manner. And as you go left and right, see if you can still recreate that frame of the breath. So starting the exhalation and then starting the movement, finishing the movement, finishing the exhalation, and so on. I'm sure you're all over it by now. And one more to the left. Just feel that, for me it's a pleasant feeling on the back of my waist, like a massage. And then back to center and 2 feet on the floor. And we're ready to do the preparation for some bridges, some bridge poses. Keep your feet apart slightly, hip width distance. Not right up against your buttock, but a little distance there between your buttocks and your feet. Feel your footprints and actually increase the pressure onto your feet and inhale, And lift off the hips just a fraction off the floor. And then lighten the weight onto the feet and exhale, lower down again. And starting with those small movements and that extra pressure through your footprints, inhaling, coming up, maybe a little bit more than you did the first time, and exhale, lowering down. With your arms, turn your arms out right at the top of the arms a little bit more as you lift up. And then turn your hands over and press your hands down when you come back down to the floor. And alternating in those two movements. By now, perhaps you've lifted up. Just do this according to your own ability at the moment. And as you've lifted up maybe to your height, pause there. Turn your arms out. Turn your shoulders out right at the top. Maybe you can feel your shoulder blades moving into center spine a little bit more. And then lowering down, we like to think a vertebra at a time. And once you touch down to the floor, then resting not just your buttocks, but your shoulders, your chest muscles, and the lot. You've done some really simple arching of your back, and we're going to continue that as a theme through the latter part of the class with some small back bends. But in the meantime, bring one knee in and other knee in. Lift your shin bones. So in some circles, this is called tabletop position, where you've got a right angle behind your knees. Make sure that that feels safe and for your lower back. From there, interlock your hands behind your head. And we'll just work the abdominals in the opposite direction, so flexing the spine. With a small movement, lift your head off the floor, lift your shoulders slightly off the floor. Look up at the ceiling so your neck is still lengthened, and then exhale back down to ground. Keep your elbows nice and wide, and let's work into these. They're basically abdominal movements, lifting up, shortening the abdominal area, pubic bone towards the sternum, and exhale, lowering down. Let's go one more round. So you're breathing. It's a little hard to do the Vinyasa breathing here, even to talk for me at the moment as I'm lifting up. And exhale back to ground. You've done a nice job there working your abdominal muscles, feet to the floor, arms out to the side. Take a couple of deeper breaths there, shoulders relaxed. And let's do one more floor twist. I think generally these are appreciated. We're going to take a wide position with your feet. So be generous and step out nice and wide. Wide as your mat. And then drop your knees to the left side. Allow your head to loll around to the right side. And then let's increase the stretch all along the right side of your body by extending your right arm overhead. Tuck your chin in towards the right armpit. Open up that right rib cage, right waist. And then folding that arm in and allowing the knees to drop to the right side. Extend the left arm overhead. Chin is downward. And that's such a lovely opening. Let's do it all over again. Knees to the left. Right arm overhead. You've still got that wide stance that allows you to stretch your right hip here when your knees are to the left. And then folding that arm in. And one more side. All the length that you can muster from your left ribs to your left knee. And then while you're there and your knees are to the right, fold your left arm in. And this is a good position to come up into all fours position. So rolling over to the side, coming into all fours. Gradually, and a little bit later, we'll come up to standing, but taking cat pose at the moment. And with that same idea of tabletop, so your spine is relatively straight. We haven't moved in either direction of flexion or extension. Press into your palms, press the backs of your fingers, the bottom of your knuckles, and then lift your spine up towards the ceiling. Exhale. Inhale, allow the spine to dip, move your front chest forward. Inhale. Now go as slowly as you can here, and I'm going to do that too, so that I can frame my movement with the breath once again. The inhale starts, and then I move into the movement with the breathing, and then the movement finishes, and I'm still breathing a little bit. If you tend to be very flexible, as I am, keep a slight bend through the elbows and keep the crease of the elbows facing each other, so to avoid hyperextension. Then it's just a natural thing to do here to move into downward facing dog pose. Tuck your toes under, press firmly into your hands, bottom of your knuckles, lift your knees, lift your hips. Step out wide as you can, as you did in the floor twist, and then bend your knees a little bit. We're being kind to the hamstrings initially, and pike your buttocks nice and high up towards the ceiling. I think piking is like a gymnastics term I have heard. So you're lifting the buttocks high up towards the ceiling. Good. And then we're going to exit through walking forward. Take a couple of steps forward. Walk your hands back. And then lift from your abdominal muscles and come all the way up to standing. Good. From there, turn so you're facing the short end of the mat, and pick up your strap or whatever you have that replicates that. And this is just a little bit of a reminder, an awareness about forward bending. If you bring the strap to the top of your thighs and the bottom of your torso, I've got it doubled up so it's a little bit thicker, and my hands resting against my hips. Soften at the back of your knees and pull lightly on the belt as you bring your torso forward. I'm going to go about halfway or a third of the way down to the floor. That's enough. You're doing a self-adjustment, and so that forward bending is with a relatively straight back at this time, and you're pulling back the hips towards the opposite direction and extending the spine forward. So feel that crease at the top of your hips that we often refer to. Feel it going deeper. That fold deepens and it allows you to come forward and down a little bit at a time. Okay, good. Press into your feet, bend your knees forward. Notice where you were holding your belt and whether you had a white knuckle grip on your belt. Probably that wasn't so necessary. So leave your belt to the side now. And let's transfer that information into chair pose. So taking a stance with your feet apart, hip width distance, and at the same time as you raise your arms up, you're going to sit back into, it's really imaginary chair pose. So swing your arms forward and up, sit your buttocks back, and then bending from that hip crease right at the top of your thighs. So feel into that movement. So this is just a relatively slight bend. You can go a little deeper if you drop your hips, but we're just warming up your knees at this point still. Inhale and come up, and exhale, lower your arms. Good. Let's take that with a flow. So inhaling and arms come up, buttocks sit back. And because it's such a simple movement, let's add one more level here and see how your balance goes. If you can now lift your heels and balance on your forefoot or the balls of your feet. And then keeping the heels up and working with that balance and straight legs all the way up. And exhale and heels come down. I feel like I just snuck that in for you, but it's always good to do balancing poses. So let's go that way one more time. So that hip crease, deepen that fold, bring your arms up. They're not all the way up towards the ceiling. They're more in line with the sides of your ears. And then lengthen them out. Feel your elbows extend. And then steady as you go. And heels come up. And then straightening through your legs. Your heels are still elevated. And then slow descent of your arms and your heels. And even though it still feels kind of wintry weather, that is definitely a warming pose and a good one. Relax your shoulders, relax your elbow joint. All right, let's take Uttanasana then. That seems like a natural progression, the forward fold position. And without the belt this time, just slip your maybe your little fingers or the blade of your fingers into that hip fold and then start to come forward. Just a little bit at a time. And then as you're ready, release your hands and hold the shin bones. I've got my hands just below my knees. And then from there, pump up your chest and bring the corners of your front chest forward. Feel like you're lengthening the torso out, telescoping it away from the pelvis. And then in this position, your back is slightly concave. So these are always good preparations for back bending and feeling into the dorsal thoracic. So shoulder blades a little closer to each other. And then let's go the other way and into flexion and allow your head to drop. Your hands to come down a little further. And then lastly, fold your arms so that your hands slot into the elbow crease. With your arms folded, let the weight of them help you draw nearer to the floor, nearer to your legs. Relax your shoulders. Relax the back of your neck. And then from here, it's quite natural to take downward facing dog pose and then walk your hands forward, your feet back. And you're right there. By all means, keep your knees slightly bent, still working on your shoulders warming up, and feel that stretch as your shoulders move away from your arms. Your ribs move away from your arms, and the buttocks pike. Good. And then from here, we're coming into child's pose, the version with your arms extended. So very slowly lowering down, knees wide, swing your feet together, and release down. it'll make a difference if you can recreate that adjustment that you gave to yourself with the belt and feel like a kindly helper has come along and assisted you in drawing that hip fold deeper. If you're still warming up your knees, keep your buttocks slightly elevated off of your heels. Very good. And then preparing to come into downward facing dog pose. And it's really just an exit from the pose and a way to keep you breathing. Take one step forward, exhaling, another step forward. Bring your hands back up onto your shin bones. Lengthen your torso forward. Hands to hips. Press into your feet. Inhale and come all the way up to standing. Okay, good work. And from here, we'll take a few standing poses and come back to working with the Vinyasa type of breathing. So facing the short end of your mat, step right foot forward, left foot back. I find it's really helpful to have a space between the tops of my thighs. So right foot's a little right, left foot's a little left, and the back foot facing slightly forward. Bring your hands onto your hips. Even that small movement, hands onto your hips, bring your elbows back and then feel the work in the dorsal thoracic and the upper part of the back. So we're reducing that tendency to stoop. Simple movement. We're going to bring the right leg into flexion, bending the right knee, and at the same time bringing the arms up to goalpost position, like this. That's it. And then exhale, straightening that front leg and lowering the arms. So a version of Virabhadrasana 1, Warrior 1 pose. And now you could start the inhalation a little bit before the movement and inhaling and completing the movement, and a little bit more inhalation and exhalation and moving and completing the exhalation, drawing the lower part of your abdomen back. So slow movement. Let's go 2 more rounds. What's the rush? I mean, we're just going to do another pose after this. All right. And then pausing there. Let's stay right foot forward, left foot back. Work a little bit more on this side. And then this time we're going to bring the arms up towards the ceiling for the classic pose. So at the same time as flexing the knees, inhaling, turn your arms out and bring your arms up. You can take a wide position with the arms like a victory sign, or if you're more supple in your shoulders, parallel arms, or even your hands all the way together. And then feeling your footing and lowering the arms on the exhalation. Exhale starts a little bit and then lowering the arms. Finishes, draw the navel back. Let's go again. And lowering. And third time we're going to hold it. So starting the inhalation, finishing the inhalation, and then normal breathing. And completing the pose, lean a little bit into the back leg. Let that back leg feel like it's supporting you, even maybe drawing you back slightly. And then tilt your chin. Keep your balance. Lengthen the back of your neck. Look up. And then it's so easy to lift the lungs and the heart. Beautiful. And lowering the chin, lowering the arms on the exhalation. And one graceful step forward, left foot to right, right foot back. And taking a steady stance, so feel your footprints, front and back. Maybe lean into the back leg a little bit more to wake it up. And let's work with goalposts. So front leg bends. The breath is framing the movement still. That means you're going very slowly. And not rushing. And one more time. Lowering the arms on the exhalation, drawing the navel back slightly. Okay, good work. And then let's alternate now or change the emphasis to raising the arms straight. Classic pose, inhale and bring the arms up. But we're going to keep moving, so starting the exhalation to lower the arms, the movement. And keep going. And let's take this as the steady and static position. Once you've raised the arms up, drop your shoulders and lift from the center of your chest, from the mid-sternum. Good. Feel into your back leg. And we're going to lower the arms, so start the exhalation, start the movement, exhale. Complete the exhalation, and then step right foot to left. Okay, good. Give the legs a little bit of a shake out. Your elbows a little shake out. Sometimes we've been concentrating so hard that it makes us a little bit stressed. Right foot forward, left foot back. And let's continue with our standing poses with Parsvattanasana, which is a really good hamstring stretch. So steady balance on your 2 feet. Lean a little bit into the back leg. That helps me keep that leg extended and supportive. And then bring your hands simply onto your hips and rotate your hips so that they're level and square. All right, we're going to keep the front leg straight. It's fine to soften behind your knee as you take your forward bend, and especially to press into the front footprint. So taking your bow and then starting your inhalation, straightening up and back to upright. And let's go a few times like that. So you begin to feel the forward movement a little smoother on each go, and that's aided by your breath. This next time as you come forward, just check to see that you've still got that deep crease at the front of your hip. So where you were using the belt to draw your crease deeper, more deeply, feel that. And then from there, release your hands and hold onto the front shin bone just below the knee, a little further along. Adjust your hips so that right side comes back a little bit. The front of the left hip rolls forward. Now you're in a deeper forward bend, and as much as possible we're making that safe through the folding at the front of the hip. But for the last part, if you can, then release your hands down, release your torso down. into a really deep forward bend. To exit from the pose, press into your footprint, front foot. Bring your hands back onto your hips. Soften at the back of your right knee, and then feel into your back leg as you come up and all the way upright. Good. Relax your shoulders. Step left foot to right and right foot back. All right. So besides that common instruction where the hips are squarely facing forward, just check to see whether they're level and if there's an adjustment that you could make that would help that evenness. And then moving forward from the top of the left thigh and stretching out. Your shoulders are relaxed. Good, we're not holding, and then we're coming up on the inhalation. So if you can remember to implement the vinyasa, the breathing, the frame of the breath and the movement. And let's go for a few forward bends like that. The work that you did in balancing in chair pose is helpful here as you come forward, pressing on the inside of the left foot. And the last time that you come forward and downward, release your hands. Take a grasp of the front leg. Relax your shoulders. And then ease into it as you can, or stop at any point where you feel like you need to respect a limit there. And for the last part, and if you've managed to take your hands all the way down, then creating a deeper forward bend and head towards the shin. Keep the abdomen lifting up away from the front thigh, and then a firm left footprint. Bring your hands onto your hips. Press on the inside of that foot. Flex your front knee a little bit, and inhale and come all the way up. And right foot to left. Good. Well done. Let's come into Prasarita Padottanasana, wide leg forward bend, and take the block for that. All right, and then step out to that wider distance on your mat. And facing the long, the long end of your mat. And your feet facing directly forward. In fact, turn in just a little bit. As I go along, when I do this pose, my feet tend to turn out, to splay. So I'm just going to turn them in a little bit to start with. And then feel the feet working into the mat, but also the outer arches of the feet pressing out. And then from there, and from the hip fold, I've got my block in front of me on the high end. Let's take a bow. And not so much bringing your chest down just yet, but deepening that dent at the front of your thighs. And then once you've come partially down to the floor, easy reach to have your hands onto the top of the block. The heel of the hand onto the block. Then straighten your arms. And to straighten the leg, use the front thigh muscle. So from the top of your knee to your hip fold, drawing up. The knees lift up in that manner. And we're just working with the lengthening of the spine forward. Keep your chest up. Maybe keep your chin up a little bit and your shoulders down. Good. And then releasing to come down. And if you're prepared to come off the block, then your hands in a line, probably in front of your feet or back a little bit further. And stay with the block on either the high end or the low end on an as-need basis. So it's there for your use. Then releasing your head, the weight of your head, the back of your neck is long all the way to the crown of your head. And then to complete this pose, do a lean in slightly to the forefoot and feel what happens with the backs of your legs when you do that. I get a really strong stretch at the very topmost hamstring. And then we're exiting from the pose. So bring your block into play again. I've got it on the high end once more. Heel of the hand onto the top of the block. Lean out a little bit. Lengthen, telescope your spine forward, your chest forward. And then from here, and to make it easy on your knees, heel, toe, come all the way into center. Bend your knees a little bit and rock up to standing. So we've done some really good warming up for some back bends lying down. So do that. Take a lying down position, face down on your mat, and just lengthen right out. And fold your arms so that when your elbows are bent like this, you can rest your head onto your hands, onto your folded hands. And do a bit of a hip waggle so that it feels like you're nestling your front body into the mat, especially where your pubic bone is. Relax your shoulders. We're not doing anything just yet, so total relaxation, but in a lying down position. Let's do a little bit of work with the hamstrings. So initially in many of these poses you were stretching them. Now we're going to use them for back bends, so we want to tone them. So try this. Tuck your toes under. So when your toes are coiled under in that manner, then lift your knees and maybe the bottom of your thighs now, but your pubic bone is still anchored, and feel that movement at the backs of your legs. So from the back of your knee to your buttocks, and including your buttocks, that whole area is very firm and ultimately supportive. So let's see if we can get the same feeling. Point your toes away from you. Your legs are either all the way together or slightly apart. Press on the big toe side of your foot, and then see if you can tone the hamstrings and the buttock muscles again. I think that works really well. And then let go. Do a little hip rock side to side. Feel that loosen up your buttock muscles again and the lower back. Let's start with Sphinx pose. So bending your elbows and coming up onto your forearms. All 5 fingers, both hands pointing straight forward. This is a really nice way to ease into back bends for me. I'm supported on my forearms, but also I'm doing a strengthening movement and drawing my hands back towards my elbows. Hands pull back towards my elbows. Now wake up those hamstrings, the buttock muscles, and especially lift up through the front of your chest. Just looking straight forward or a little bit downward out in front of you. Pubis is anchored. Elbows coming back, but the corners of your chest pressing forward. Good. And then lower yourself down and go back to folding your arms and resting your head onto the side or onto your forehead. And pause. And one of the great warm-ups for doing any kind of back bending is Shalabhasana, the locust pose. So from here, and having your head straight forward and resting on the mat, Bring your arms back alongside your body. And let's start with palms downwards. Draw your shoulders back. Draw your arms back. Draw the navel up away from the floor and press the tops of your feet and tone the hamstrings and the buttock muscles. You're all prepared for lift-off now. Lift your head, lift your chest. Roll your shoulders back. And then that feeling, recreate that feeling of drawing the shoulder blades closer together. To help with that, lift your arms, turn your palms up towards the ceiling, and maybe lift your chest up a little bit higher. Come on down. I hope you were breathing evenly through all of that. It's a little harder to do when you're resting right on your diaphragm. So let's do another round, but with conscious breathing on an inhalation, preparing to come up, and then lifting up, and chest comes up, and arms come up, and palms upwards. And starting your exhalation and lowering down, and all the way down. Good. Fold your arms again. Rest your head onto your folded hands. And let's do a little work for the lower part of your body. We're focusing on anchoring the legs. Let's lift one leg. So starting and just with your arms straight by your side, head forward, directly forward. Lift your right leg. Very simple movement, but lift that leg without lifting your right hip. So keep the front of your right hip anchored. Keep your left leg anchored. And as you lift that leg, lift it a little bit more on the inside of it. Inner knee, inner arch. Lower down. Swap over. And as the left leg comes up, right leg is strong and stable, and the front left hip still on the floor. Good. Release down. Then fold your arms again. Rest your head onto your folded hands. Rock a little bit side to side. And let's do the full Shalabhasana now that you've done such careful and concise warm-up. Bring your arms back by your side. Straight at the elbows, straight at the legs. And then think about it as we come into the pose with the breath and coming up on the inhalation, and head comes up and chest comes up and arms are up and legs are up. Still breathing. See if you can take another breath or two consciously, and bring yourself back down to ground. Bring your hands around to the front and underneath your shoulders. So we're going to move very slowly and thoughtfully into forward stretch in child's pose. So lifting your chest, lifting all the way up, beginning to fold back. Take it really quietly because you've gone from back bending to now forward bending, and it will help to deepen that crease at the front of your hips. So the hips move back before you even lower down. And we have one more back bending movement to do here, which is the bow pose. So if we had a goal for this sequence, this Vinyasa Krama sequence, it is the bow pose. So we've done lots of things to put in place. Let's lie back down in anticipation of back bending. And when you're lying out in a straight line like this, bend up your right leg, bring your right heel close to your right buttock, Reach your right hand back to the front of the right ankle. Left leg bended in. Hold at the front of the left ankle. If for lack of suppleness here or lack of long arms, you need to use a belt at the front of the ankle, then by all means do that. Flex your feet, so toes come down towards the knees, and then let your head rest onto the floor and just work with the lower body. So see if you can feel into the hamstrings again, so the backs of the thighs. And if you're contracting there, then stretch the front of the thighs from your hips to your knees. And then as you can, see if you can lift up a little bit. You can leave your forehead resting on the ground and just work with the lower part of the body and lifting up. Hamstrings, buttock muscles helping you lift up. Push your ankles into your hands and exhale, lower down. Rest the thighs entirely on the floor, but keep the legs bent and rest for a moment. Consolidate. If you haven't done a back bend like that for a little while, fortunately we're going to repeat it, but this time with just the upper body. So bringing your hands back, getting a grasp there at your ankles, and then feel your thigh bones into the mat this time as much as you can. Keep the front thighs grounded, the knees down towards the floor, and then just lift up your head and your chest. Keep the ankles moving away from you. Lift up, look out, breastplate up, lengthening up to the jugular notch. And exhale, come down. Once you touch down, as before, keep your legs bent, fold your arms, and take note. I didn't ask you in advance, but I think you'll remember which part of your body was easier to move. Was it easier to lift your legs or to lift up your head and your chest? For most people, they say the lower part of the body is a bit more resistance. So we're going to work with that first and reach your hands into bow position, front of your ankles. And then we're going to work the lower body first, and the head still resting. Lift your thighs, lift your knees. Maybe you've got a little bit more stretch through the front of your thighs on repetition. And then finally, and almost reluctantly, lifting up your head, your chest, and then happily coming to ground. Legs come down, release your hands, let your legs flop back. Rest your head onto your folded hands, and most especially, relax your shoulders. And step by step, come into the child's pose again. So very slowly and carefully drawing your hips back. And always mindful of the care of your knees. So if your knees are needing more warm-up than we've done, then keep your buttocks slightly lifted off of your heels. And then that hip fold, can you make it a little deeper, the crease a little deeper? All right, and then as a counter pose, come all the way up to standing. And find a wall space that you can use as a chair. Not chair pose, fortunately, But resting your buttocks against the wall like this, your feet hip-width apart. There's my buttocks, my backside against the wall, and just taking stock. And then from there, we'll do a stretch through the backs of the legs that's really needed now after the back bends. So folding just a little ways towards the floor, folding forward, and then I brought my hands into that fold of the hips again. And as I turn my thighs in, widen the sitting bones, moving deeper through the groin stretch, releasing my hands down. I'm not going to come into a direct forward bend. It's enough just initially here to lengthen the frontal body. Think about that deep crease there and then lengthening out all the way up to your shoulders, projecting your chest forward, your neck forward, the crown of your head forward. And if there's any more scope for you to deepen your standing forward bend, then here's the time to do it. And with the breath. So we haven't been so conscientious as in the beginning with the breathing. So find your breath again. Every exhalation a little bit more tone through the abdomen and deeper through the hip fold. All right, and then flex your knees, bend your knees over your ankles, push away from the wall, and come all the way up to standing. And we'll do one twist, but from a standing position. So take up your yoga block once more. Take up your space on the mat so you feel comfortable and into your footprints. Then take up your block, and I've got it in my right hand on the high end. I'm going to place it out at a distance from me on the high end. And then leaning out, oh, there's my hamstring stretch again. And leave the heel of your hand onto the top of the block. You've already done a nice lateral extension just all along that right side. And let's add the rotation. Bring your left hand to your right leg on the outside. Get a grasp of the calf muscle on the outside. And then see what happens as you bend both of your elbows. And you're rotating in a lateral way. So as you look to the right, maybe you can duck your head down, looking underneath the right arm towards the right side, and drawing your torso across to that side. Check your stance, your steadiness in the way you're standing, and keep equal pressure on both of your feet. All right, let's swap it over. And without even coming up, transfer the belt over to the left side, left hand onto the top of the block, right hand, left leg, reach it across. And as you do that, then you're rotating your torso through your shoulder to the left side. And that's aided and abetted by bending your elbows and turning without pulling off to one side through your feet. So keep your steady balance on both feet. Good. Allow yourself to gradually come back to center. Bring your hands onto your hips. Press into the circumference of both feet and come all the way up to standing and upright. Okay, very nice. From here, we're going to take an inversion. So I've got a bolster. You can have a cushion to rest your hips onto. So the cushion or the bolster across your mat, sit your buttocks on the top of it and have your strap right next to you. Using the support of your cushion like this, with your hips elevated and your torso down, your shoulders on the floor, you're back into a slight back bend, or maybe not so slight. So take your feet off the floor, your knees towards your chest, and make sure that your back feels like it's fully supported, that lower area, so your back ribs, your back waist, your sacrum, and it might take a little toing and froing to get into a position where you have that full support. It's not something that you can do in a perfunctory way. It has to be thoughtful and a felt experience that you have the support that you need. So I got there finally, and I've still got my legs bent. Instead of pulling my knees onto my chest, I'm just going to keep them at a distance from me so that the buttock bones are towards the floor. Can you get that sensation for yourself? And then from there, take up your belt and slip it over both feet, and then extend the legs. So I've got strap holding on to either side of the belt, two-hand grip on the balls of my feet, and extending the legs up. You can see my position, and for the most part, I'm trying to find the place where my legs are straight above my hips. And what will help with that is, once again, if I'm moving the sits bones towards the floor. And that provides more support for my lower back. If I bring my legs over, which I have the flexibility to do, then I start rounding in my lower back. So we're just going to keep as natural a curve there as possible. The legs straight, the heels directly above the sitting bones, and we've got the slight inversion. If your legs are strong enough to maintain and hold this position, you could do this without the belt, and in that case then you can just rest your arms overhead. And really, we're doing Viparita Karani. We're doing legs up without the wall. Take a moment more to adjust your shoulders so that they're not elevated, not hunched, they're downward, and that you've got the full support of the floor for them. Soften the diaphragm ribs and the belly muscles. And just one more minute there. Observe your breathing, which is completely natural, not restricted, and no particular control. All right, and we're going to move on in this manner. So bending the legs down. Drop your heels towards your buttocks. Reach up and have one hand at the front of each patella. And then one foot to the floor, other foot to the floor. It seems like it would be a safe way to get out of this just by lifting off and pulling the bolster to the side, or if you prefer, you can roll off to one side. But we're going to end up lying on our back in any case. And let's complete the practice that we've done with a counter pose, which is a little bit of a bridge. So have your feet apart, close to your buttocks. Bring your hands together as though you were going to have them in namaste position, but point your fingers up towards the ceiling and rest the heel of the hand at the front of your chest. At the same time as you lift the buttocks, extend the arms straight at the elbows and move your fingertips up towards the ceiling. Press the upper part of your back into the mat. So the back is rounded at this point as the tips of the shoulders lift up. Feel the work in the buttocks that's helped you lift off, and keep the weight on the inside of your feet as you lower back down and bend your elbows. Bring your hands back down and all the way down to the side of your body. From here, we're going to move into the yoga relaxation. So take your best props for making yourself as comfortable as possible. Bolsters, blankets, eye bags, and such. And once you've got your setup and you've laid your body carefully over the props that you're using and perhaps covered your eyes, keep your legs bent for a little while longer. And give time to note any tension in the particular places that we've worked today. Focus on the sacrum, the buttock muscles, the lower back above the sacrum, the back waist area. And take support where you're lying. If you're using a bolster underneath your backs of your knees and your thighs, then release the weight of your legs. And straightening out your legs. Let your feet drop out, your knees drop out, and the thigh muscles be loose on the bone. Draw your shoulders and your arms down. And you've done everything that you can initially here to set yourself up for ultimate relaxation. Once you've done that, then begin to let go. Release to gravity. It's a common experience when we feel into, at the beginning of the Shavasana, the heaviness of the body through the bones of the body, the bigger muscle groups letting go. And it's a common experience when we take care to do that that ultimately the body starts to feel lighter. With release comes more lightness. And now give your attention to your physical senses, and especially your facial features, mouth, nose, eyes, even your ears. And let each of those in turn become more pacified. As you relax your forehead and especially your temples, allow the brain to relax too. The brain being like any organ of your body, formed of tissues and cells, and allowing the brain to relax into the back of the skull. And then allow your awareness to rest lightly onto your breath as it comes and goes without interference, without restrictions. If you like to stay longer here, there's no need for you to move out of the relaxation. Stay as long as you like. If you know you need to be on your way, then first of all, bring one hand across and rest it onto your abdomen, the other hand onto the center chest over your heart. And feel into those two areas. Feel the belly breath. Feel the chest breath. And then with the arms folded as they are by now, roll onto one side. And as you do that, take another few breaths in side lying position, just to reassure yourself you're not in a hurry. You doing something special for yourself, even as you exit from Shavasana. Once you do come up and take time to have a comfortable seat, and in that ritual way that we have at the end of the class, joining your hands in front of your chest, in front of your heart center, really bow your head slightly towards your heart. Feel like where your hands are, you can elevate and open your heart. And most importantly, feel into that innate goodness that you are, and that goodwill that you fund from doing the practice, which is not for just ourselves, but to share with each other. And thank you for practicing with me. Namaste.